Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to a special edition, the 50th edition of LUMS Live. 50 एपिसोड्स गुजर चुके हैं इसके और पता ही नहीं चला, लेकिन शायद बहुत को पता चला भी हो। अगर आप में कोई ऐसा एपिसोड है जो मिस किया है, जो कि मुझे यकीन है कि किया होगा, तो YouTube पर मौजूद है, Facebook पे मौजूद है, वो जरूर तलाश कीजिए। और सिर्फ एक याद दहानी के लिए या आपको इंस्पायर करने के लिए कि किस किस्म की गुफ्तगू हुई, कैसे कैसे अच्छे लोग आए, हमने बहुत सारे क्लिप्स लेके पुराने एपिसोड्स के वो आज इकट्ठे किए हैं। कभी कभी जी चाहता है कि पीछे नजर डाली जाए, उससे खुशी मिलती है, और कुछ ऐसे साथी जिन्होंने कुछ मिस किया हो वो भी देखें, अरे यहाँ तो बहुत काम हुआ था। तो हमने उनको मुख्तलिफ कैटेगरीज में तकसीम कर दिया। तो जो पहली कैटेगरी के कुछ क्लिप्स हैं वो है कोविड-19 का जो इम्पैक्ट हुआ है मुख्तलिफ शोबों के ऊपर, उस पर जो गुफ्तगू हुई, उस पर जो शुरा आए, उस पर जो एक्सपर्ट्स आए, उस पर जो एजुकेशनिस्ट आए, डॉक्टर्स आए, उन्होंने क्या बात की, उसका एक क्लिप है। सो लेट्स वॉच दैट एंड देन विल टेक इट फर्दर। और बहुत कुछ है अभी देखने वाला, आज कहीं नहीं जाना, आज सब कुछ बंद कर दें सिवाय लम्स लाइव के। ओके, वॉच दिस क्लिप एंड देन विल गो फर्दर।
How do I help my students learn my discipline, to think, to communicate, to act like an engineer or an entrepreneur or a political science or whatever, you know, and what are those kinds of experiences, online or face-to-face, can I design for that, where students are presented with content that they can consider, they can reflect on, they can compare, they can question, then they can apply and adapt new information and skills.
How do we establish partnerships with the students? You know, pedagogical partnerships, faculty-student pedagogical partnerships. How students can become a partner when we conduct research. How students can become partner when we, improve our existing courses. How students can become partner when we design new courses. How can they think on a very micro level, which is a very course level? How can they think on a on a macro level, which is a program level?
Students are now taking charge of their learning. Before this, instructors and faculty members would feel that it's probably their responsibility to make students learn, but now students are taking charge of their learning and they're learning on their own. So that's, I think, a big challenge, and a big challenge which is being converted to big opportunity. That in education, the learners are taking charge of their learning, and that is something that faculty member everywhere can exploit.
In terms of the criteria for success and the teaching and learning structures in a learning paradigm is one where, learning is held constant, but time is variable, where the environment is ready when the student is ready. And whatever learning experience works is valued.
ये वाला बजट बड़ा मुश्किल है बनाना, और ये बड़ा डायनामिक भी रहेगा इन द सेंस कि हो सकता है बजट के बाद बनाने के बाद सितंबर अगस्त में हमें दोबारा कोई रिव्यू करना पड़े, और बजट को भी फिर वो जो मिनी बजट कहते हैं, लेकिन बेसिकली एडजस्टमेंट्स, किसी किस्म की एडजस्टमेंट्स इस साल और अगले साल हमें लानी पड़े.
Facts about this current crisis. One is, this is not a one-time shock. This is going to be a series of shocks. Because shocks जो आ रहे हैं वो labor market की disruption, death की वजह से नहीं आ रहे हैं in a lot of countries like Pakistan. पाकिस्तान में actually अभी mortality rates काफी low हैं, right? So shock जो आपका आ रहा है वो आ रहा है preventive measures की वजह से, because आप death को prevent करने के लिए economy को जाके recess करते हैं through suppression measures.
I hope that we have some good measures of really trying to understand जो हमारे vulnerable. Moving forward, as Ali said, I think in budget, I would say this requires a radical rethinking of the social compact in Pakistan. I think जो दो sectors जो इस वक्त हमें आगे लेके जा सकते हैं, बहुत economics में भी और society में भी, are health and education.
Capital outflow जाएगा कहाँ? इससे मिलेगा क्या? So I'm not so sure if that is really a concern that we should have at this point. In the context of what we need to really be focusing on is, as you have been rightly saying, where do we get the money from? But not only that, how to spend this money much more effectively. What are the sectors we should be thinking about? Agar hum, let's say for through policies, we are able to keep the capital in this country. Where do we spend it?
perhaps we will see some bridging of these inequities if, you know, we're having the right conversations and if we're having an open dialogue. And as we've mentioned earlier, I think what's most important is not just us talking about it, but having buy-in from men and from women in the household.
We're hoping that your higher end businesses hai, they're going to increase the capacity to allow their workers to work from home. But at the other side, we do have to consider the many issues that working from home is going to bring up for our workers.
Regardless of the pandemic, if you think about it as just any policy, having half of your population represented on task force is just, it's a basic rational point. You can't have policy impacting half your population without any representation on your task forces or you know, people who are making the policy. And so that's a problem that we really need to recognize. And I'm hoping that the pandemic is going to kind of bring it to the fore like it hasn't come before.
But in South Asia in particular, and this includes like other countries in South Asia, the difference is huge in terms of the expectations of what amount of work women will put in the household. So of course, if you're being expected to work from home now, and you're already working from home doing unpaid work, तो फिर आपका double burden हो जाता है, जैसे Dr. Hadia ने कहा, आपका triple burden हो जाता है if you're also expected to act as your children's school teacher at home.
I don't think कि सवाल ये है कि यूनिवर्सिटी बंद होती है कि नहीं होती. I think हम अगेन ब्रिक वाटर में गलत सवाल के पीछे पड़ गए. सवाल ये है कि क्या मैं तालीम को खुला रख सकता हूँ कि नहीं रख सकता. अगर आप इस सवाल से शुरू होते हैं तो फिर बहस खत्म, फर्क हो जाती है. फिर बहस ये होती है कि कौन सी ऐसी चीज कोई यूनिवर्सिटी कर सकती है या HEC कर सकता है या पाकिस्तान कर सकता है जिससे जिन लोगों के लिए तालीम हिफाजत हो जाए, सेफ रहे, उनको आप उसमें इन्वॉल्व करना शुरू कर दें.
The university is providing a place, a space for us to think, to develop young people intellectually, to develop their capacity for reasoning, for them to be able to stand on their own feet and take a position on things, for students to be able to acculturate themselves in the surroundings that they find themselves in.
There has to be an understanding that ये minimum standards हैं, इससे नीचे हम नहीं जाएंगे. अब सवाल ये है कि अब जो इस new normal में है, उसमें there's a lot of temptation कि आप standards को lower करें. हम इस वक्त जो है लगे हुए हैं constantly इस कोशिश में कि standards lower ना हो. आप इस तरीके से तालीम दें, इस तरीके से तालीम दें, आप टेलीफोन पे पढ़ाएं, आप उनको खत लिख के पढ़ाएं, मगर आप तालीम के स्टैंडर्ड्स को लोअर ना करें. राइट. सो इस वक्त हम सोच रहे हैं कि ये जो अल्टरनेटिव वर्ल्ड आ रहा है इसमें हम स्टैंडर्ड्स को कैसे मेंटेन करें.
We are not any longer in the situation where we can run things the way we used to. Neither can the structures of our semester system perhaps continue to be the same, nor the number of courses offered, nor the environment in which they are taught, nor the manner in which they are taught. So everything has changed, in short.
अगर आपने इस वायरस को समझना है या इसके लिए कोई वैक्सीन तैयार करनी है तो आपको इस समझना होगा कि वायरस का स्ट्रक्चर क्या है. और वायरस के स्ट्रक्चर को समझने के लिए आपको कंप्यूटिंग रिसोर्सेज चाहिए, आपको स्ट्रक्चरल बायोलॉजी चाहिए, आपको बायोलॉजी को समझना पड़ता है, आपको जेनेटिक्स को समझना पड़ता है. तो वैक्सीन तो एक एंड प्रोडक्ट है, उससे पहले एक लंबा चौड़ा मरहला है, एक पूरा सफर है जिसमें से गुजरना पड़ता है.
मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग के मुताबिक जो हम लैक कर रहे हैं वो हमारी कनेक्शंस हैं, हमारी क्रॉस बाउंड्री कनेक्शंस, मुख्तलिफ यूनिवर्सिटीज के बीच में, मुख्तलिफ डिसिप्लिन्स के बीच में, क्लिनिशियंस और साइंटिस्ट के बीच में और इंडस्ट्री के बीच में, so on so forth. तो पाकिस्तान में एक्सप्लॉइटेबल आइटम्स और एंटिटीज मौजूद हैं जो एक वेल कनेक्टेड इकोसिस्टम में डेवलप किए जा सकते हैं और साइंटिफिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को भी कनेक्ट करने की जरूरत है. वी हैव ऑल द इंग्रेडिएंट्स.
We don't know much about the transmission of this disease in our community. एक सबसे बड़ा ये प्रॉब्लम हमारे सामने आया है कि हमें नहीं पता कि कम्युनिटी में किस तरह से वो डिजीज फैल रही है. China was able to talk about R0 in the very first week of the transmission of this disease. हमें अभी भी नहीं पता कि पाकिस्तान में R0 which is the rate of transmission है वो क्या है और किस तरह से फैल रहा है. Who are the most susceptible groups and who are the people who are infecting these susceptible groups. And unless scientific community works with the clinicians, it's very difficult to identify those things.
जैसे अगर 200 से ज़्यादा वैक्सीन्स डिफरेंट स्ट्रेटजीज डिफरेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स यूज करके बनाई जा रही हैं और उसको टेस्ट किया जा रहा है इस वायरस के अगेंस्ट, जो कि बहुत ही मुश्किल है, ठीक है, तो इनमें से कोई एक आध भी अगर कामयाब हो जाती है तो वो ना सिर्फ इस वायरस को एरेडिकेट करने में, मिनिमाइज करने में हेल्प करेगी, बल्कि बहुत से जो दूसरे वायरसेस हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल HIV है, हेपेटाइटिस C है, मर्स है, तो वो सारे जो स्ट्रेटजीज हैं वो उन वायरसेस को एरेडिकेट करने में भी हेल्पफुल होंगी.
जो डेटा यहाँ पे आ रहा है, सिंध से आ रहा है, पंजाब से आ रहा है, उसमें ये पता लगता है कि जब होम बेस्ड टेस्टिंग के लिए लोग जाते हैं तो बिटवीन 50% से तकरीबन जो है 70% तक लोग जो हैं कम्युनिटीज में रिफ्यूज कर देते हैं टेस्ट करवाना. तो देयर इज अ बिग ब्रेकडाउन हियर बिटवीन द कम्युनिटी एंड द स्टेट.
So, अगर हम ये लॉकडाउन कर रहे थे जिंदगियां बचाने के लिए, तो हमने एक तरफ से शायद जिंदगियां जरूर बचाई हैं, because those are also precious lives that need to be saved. But on the other hand, there are vulnerable people who we let die. So this is a controversial issue. इस पे जरा खुल के बात जो है वो I'm sure होगी.
Given the fact that this disease is presenting in so many different ways, it is really important to understand the pathophysiology of the disease in order and to understand how our immune system is responding to it in order to estimate how big of a risk it's going to be if it infects a person in a population.
Again, the purpose is to limit the damage that this COVID-19 can do to the country at large. The social structures that exist formally and informally, that includes state and society both, to be able to provide the system with the absorptive capacity to take the brunt of this monstrous disease and to survive the day after.
Messaging and how you communicate the issues related to the pandemic is essential to, sort of trying to build capacity in the environment that we're in. Obviously, is वक्त हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते in terms of the huge gaps in our capacity. All we can do is basically put a band-aid on a gaping wound. But that band-aid does still need to provide the basic functions of a band-aid. If you're not going to communicate at all, then even that minimal work that you can do is going to fail.
So this was a collection of clips from the session we did on COVID. एक बहुत important topic था, दुनिया तैयार ही नहीं थी जब COVID शुरू हुआ, और इकोनॉमी के साथ क्या हुआ, तालीम के साथ क्या हुआ, पूरी दुनिया में, सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में नहीं, सेहत के शोबे में क्या हुआ, बहुत सारे सवालिया निशान थे और अभी भी हैं. तो बहुत सारी दिलचस्प गुफ्तगू ये. लेकिन लम्स की बहुत सी खूबियों में एक खूबी ये है कि जो प्लेटफॉर्म है लम्स का, वो वसी से वसी तर होता जा रहा है. तो जहां पे ये सब कुछ है, वहां पे गुफ्तगू एक और तरफ भी रुख मोड़ती है, और वो जो दूसरी तरफ है वो तरफ है जो मुझे बहुत पसंद है, जिससे धीमापन आता है, और वो है आर्ट. पहले बहुत बात हुई एक जमाने में, अब तो आजकल सिनेमाज बंद हैं, कि रिवाइवल ऑफ द पाकिस्तानी सिनेमा, कुछ फिल्म्स भी आई, सिनेमा बहुत अच्छे अच्छे बने, तो फिल्म के ऊपर पाकिस्तान की तारीख क्या है, इस पे गुफ्तगू हुई, आर्ट के ऊपर गुफ्तगू हुई, आर्ट की अहमियत पे गुफ्तगू हुई. और हमारा तो एक तासुब है, होना भी चाहिए, उर्दू जुबान और मेरे महबूब शायर फैज साहब के ऊपर भी गुफ्तगू हुई. तो ये जो एक नर्म धीमी गुफ्तगू है आर्ट के बारे में, और हमारे पास क्या क्या खजाने हैं, उनमें कौन कौन से मेहमान थे और उन्होंने किस किस्म की गुफ्तगू की, एक नजर उन पर भी डाल लेते.
अगर आप मुझे पूछें कि आर्ट और जिंदगी का क्या ताल्लुक है, आपस में उनका क्या रब्त है क्या, तो मैं कहूंगी कि भाई ये वही है कि भाई जिंदगी जो है नामुमकिन है आर्ट के बगैर, और ना ही तालीम मुमकिन आर्ट के बगैर. लेकिन हमने उसको अलहदा कर दिया है कि जैसे इसका कोई हिस्सा ही नहीं है तालीमी निज़ाम में, या जिस तरह से एक तालीमी प्रोसेस होता है उसमें.
आर्ट के जरिए आप दूसरे शोबे जो हैं वो सिखा रहे हैं, तो उसमें कोई आर्ट में कोई चीज सही या गलत नहीं होती है. दूसरी एक और चीज ये भी है کہ ایک بچہ دوسرے بچے سے سیکھتا ہے, تیسرے بچے کو دیکھتا ہے کہ وہ کیا کر رہا ہے, آپس میں ایک دوسرے سے وہ سب سیکھتے ہیں. تو یہ کتنا زبردست ایک موقع ہے کہ جس میں اس قسم کی ایجوکیشن کی اپرچونٹی ملتی ہے.
میں نہیں سمجھتی ہوں کہ کوئی انسان اکیلے میں, جو آپ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ بند کمرے میں, کسی حد تک ہی وہ سمجھ اور اپنی انڈرسٹینڈنگ یا انفارمیشن کو بڑھا سکتا ہے, لیکن جب تک وہ انٹریکٹ نہیں کرے گا ایک کمیونٹی کے ساتھ, چاہے وہ کمیونٹی ٹیچرس کی ہو, اسٹوڈنٹس کی ہو, کالیگس کی ہو, اور ڈسپلنس کے کالیگس کی ہو, تو وہ ایک ہولسٹک ویژن کی طرف نہیں بڑھ سکتا ہے. میرے خیال سے وہ اچھا ٹیچر بن سکتا ہے.
انسان بولنے سے پہلے وہ ڈرا کرنا سیکھتا ہے, چلتا ہے یا جیسے تو وہ ڈانس کرنا سیکھتا ہے. So you see, creative expression is a very biological need. ابھی pandemic میں بھی there were so many people who reverted to poetic expressions, not even realizing that they are kind of building on their very artistic creative ability. And I think that realization is important.
So now you will see, Maula Jet t-shirts for people who are at LUMS. You'll find them in cafes. You'll see it in restaurants. So I think there's a revival, and for me, it's a good revival because this generation, the young generation now, owns it. I think our generation sort of said, "Nahi, this is not part of our culture." So many times I hear کہ جی یہ تو ہمارا کلچر نہیں ہے, یہ پشتو فلم یہ تو ہم نہیں بناتے, یا پنجابی فلم ہم نہیں بناتے. We don't own it, but it is part of our culture, and I feel that the younger generation is owning this now, and I feel that that's a good thing for cinema.
LUMS can play a pivotal role in at least starting some kind of movement towards collecting not only cinema but scripts and memorabilia and things like that. So definitely there is a role.
There is no revival. There are new things happening, and that's why I think cinema is so exciting right now. Because if it was a revival, then we would all have to fight each other to see who's going to be the new, who's going to lead it. But because there are many different aspects of cinema going on at one time, everybody can join and everybody can be a part of it.
Ajkal it's becoming cool again to like have, Maula Jet on a coffee mug or Anjuman on your t-shirt or something. But even, with that kind of like ironic reappropriation, so for me, some kind of like film institute khule, film archive, proper तरीके से, ताकि, जो legacy है, जो चीजें बनी हैं, वो ज़ाया ना हो. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. I mean, there's lots of other things that would make me happy, but for me, that is probably the top one.
میری سمجھ میں ایک بات آتی ہے کہ اگر انسان اپنے آپ سے مطمئن ہو جائے تو خفا ہونے کی ضرورت نہیں رہتی. فیض صاحب اپنے آپ سے مطمئن تھے. جو بات سلیمہ نے کہی ہے, جو بات انجم صاحب کہہ رہے ہیں, وہ یہی ہے کہ اس شخص کو معلوم ہے کہ زندگی خواہشوں کی فہرست کا نام نہیں ہے. زندگی ایک طرح سے عجب ایک خفیہ سی دستاویز ہے, اور وقت اس کو آپ کے سامنے عجیب طرح سے کھولتا ہے. تو اچھی جو خفیہ دستاویز کو پڑھنے کی ترکیب ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ آپ گھبرائے بغیر اس کو پڑھیں سمجھنے کے لیے, اور باتیں ہمیشہ نرمی سے اور حلاوت سے سمجھ میں آتی ہیں.
جو چیز فیض صاحب نے دی ہے وہ آگاہی, عزم اور ہمت, اور امید یقیناً ضروری ہے, مگر فیض صاحب نے کہیں یہ فیض صاحب کی شاعری میں کوئی مینیفیسٹو نہیں, وہ کبھی یہ نہیں انہوں نے بتایا کہ آپ کو کیا کرنا ہے. بہت اگر انہوں نے کھینچا بھی ہے تو کہا ہے کہ تم اپنی کرنی کر گزرو, جو ہوگا دیکھا جائے گا.
جو چیزیں چھوٹی سے چھوٹی لگتی ہیں اور غیر اہم لگتی ہیں ان کو بھی تھام لینا چاہیے میرے خیال میں. اور ہم سب کو پتہ ہے کہ اتفاق ہے کہ اس وقت ہم صرف نہیں بلکہ دنیا کے بیشتر لوگ جو ہیں انہی حالات, اسی خوف اور اسی مصیبت میں مبتلا ہیں. تو اس سے بڑے کیا بات ہے کہ ہم سوچ لیں ذہن میں کہ ہم نے بڑھ کے تو ان کا ہاتھ تھام لیا, اور اس طرح زندگی کا بھی ہاتھ تھام لیا.
ये तो हुई कुछ आर्ट के ऊपर गुफ्तगू, कुछ जुबान के ऊपर गुफ्तगू, सिनेमा के ऊपर गुफ्तगू। अब और क्या बात करें? तो तय ये हुआ कि बहुत सारे ऐसे सेशंस होंगे जो मुतफरिक मौज़ूआत के ऊपर होंगे, जिनमें अच्छे अच्छे लोग आएंगे, जिनमें बड़े बड़े लोग आएंगे, जिनमें नामवर लोग आएंगे, जिनमें मशहूर लोग आएंगे। तो एक सेशन हमने सैयद बाबर अली के साथ किया, उसमें मलाला भी थी, और मलाला यूसुफजई के साथ क्या बात हुई उसके सेशन की भी एक क्लिप है। फिर एक बहुत संजीदा गुफ्तगू का एक सेशन हुआ जिसमें हमारे दोस्त और आर्टिस्ट शहजाद रॉय भी थे और हमारी स्टार माहिरा खान भी थी, और इस तरह के और बहुत सारे सेशंस हुए जिनको शायद किसी एक खाने में या एक डब्बे में बंद करना ज्यादती है, क्योंकि इंसानी सोच किसी एक डब्बे में बंद नहीं हो सकती। तो ये जो मौजूआत थे जो हर एपिसोड के साथ, हर किस्त के साथ, हर एडिशन के साथ फर्क थे, इनकी भी एक झलक देखते हैं ताकि आप लोगों में ये तहरीक पैदा हो कि आप भी इस सेशन के बाद, क्योंकि अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ ये सेशन, इसके बाद हमारे पुराने सेशंस निकालें और उनमें गुफ्तगू को सुने। लेकिन उससे पहले जो ये मुतफरिक मौज़ूआत के ऊपर गुफ्तगू है, इसके कुछ क्लिप्स।
You know, somebody asked me what would you expect from a LUMS student? So I would say कि ये झूठ नहीं बोलेगा, ये झूठ नहीं बोलेगी. That again capsules everything that you have taught them of the value of ethics in life. And I think that is something that the country needs very badly.
To be honest, yes, there is pressure. You have to think twice before you say anything. But you know, when you are speaking the truth and when you believe in the message that you are delivering, there's nothing to be afraid of. When I go on a stage, I share my story. I talk about my passion for education. I say that education is equally important for every girl around the world, and every girl deserves to have this right. And I think there's nothing to be afraid of when you say that. So as long as you're speaking the truth, I think, you know, just don't worry about how you look and how you are saying it. And if you are mispronouncing it, I think these are just small things. Your message is the bigger, is the bigger mission that you are carrying with you. So that's, you know, focus on that. And yeah, but so I don't focus on the small things.
The government needs to take responsibility. The government needs to invest the right funding and resources, because, you know, private sector can't do it. It has to be the government. The government has to put the funds in. Once the funds have been put in, building from that, the one change I would make is make the system equitable. Right now, we have a very tiered system, starting with the whole, what's the medium of education? Agar Urdu medium hai, to wo theek nahi hai, but har ek ko अंग्रेजी सिखाओ. भाई जब बच्चे को समझ ही नहीं आएगी ज़बान, तो वो सीखेगा क्या आगे?
The part about elitism is mostly perception, because that is certainly not the reality at LUMS. As I described earlier on, you know, it's a mosaic of the country. It's really a mini Pakistan when you come and learn at LUMS and learn from each other.
This is the beauty of sport. I mean, that is why we watch sport. The whole theater of sport is due to the fact that things are so unpredictable. And let us also not forget that 92 mein jab hum jeete the, so we came back from the brink. And that completely turns the tables. And when we won the Champions Trophy, the same thing happened. So
there's an increasing school of thought, I think, cricket mein jo kehti hai ki jo T20 hai, wo ek ekdam alada format hai. It's not just a format, but alada sport hai. उसमें जो आपको स्किल्स चाहिए, जो आप स्किल्स एग्जिबिट करते हैं, जो एथलेटिसिज्म चाहिए, जिस तरह की आपकी बैटिंग होती है, जो बॉलिंग का रोल है, people argue quite convincingly that it's a different sport altogether. But I will go back to what Joss Butler did just a few days ago. You know, that the kind of innings that he played in a test match would have been, I'm fairly confident in saying, inconceivable.
But on a larger scale, I feel like, you know, we've always been inspired by our bowlers. And जो आपका young बच्चा है जो सड़क पे है, or anybody who's a fan of cricket, वो तो यही देखता है ना कि star कौन है. That they don't understand anything else. You know, they want to see a star, somebody who's winning games for Pakistan. And for us, historically, the bowlers have won us matches.
When I was growing up in the 90s, I had a chance to go to the stadium, bums on seats, watching these heroes in front of me. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to bat like Saeed Anwar. I wanted to bowl like Shoaib Akhtar. ایک پوری جنریشن ہے جس نے پاکستان میں کرکٹ نہیں کھیلی, اور بچوں کے لیے ڈسٹریکشنز اور بہت ساری پیدا ہو جاتی ہیں جب ان کو ایک ریگولر فیڈ آف کانٹینٹ نہیں مل رہی. And I think we've been unable to create those superstars also because of this one reason.
تو جس ملک میں قانون سازی یہ ہوگی کہ آپ ریپ کو ایکویٹ کر دیں گے اڈلٹری کے ساتھ, اور اگر آپ اس گینگ ریپ یا ریپ کے نتیجے میں اگر آپ پریگننٹ ہو جاتی ہیں تو وہ اقبال جرم کہلاتا ہے, کنفیشن آف دا کرائم, اور آپ کو سٹوننگ ٹو ڈیتھ یا لائف امپریزنمنٹ آپ کی سزا ہوگی. تو پھر تو مجھے بتائیں کون سی عورت ہوگی, کون سی نوجوان ہوگی, کون سی لڑکی ہوگی جس کے گارڈینز یا پیرنٹس آ کے ریپ رپورٹ کریں گے, FIR میں درج کریں گے ریپ, جب ان کے پاس 4 مسلمان مرد گواہ نہیں ہیں اس ریپ کے.
جو یہاں پر سگنل توڑ رہی ہوتی ہے, میں ایک بہت آئی نو پیڈیسٹرین قسم کی مثال دے رہا ہوں, لٹرلی پیڈیسٹرین مثال دے رہا ہوں, جو یہاں پر ٹریفک سگنل توڑے گی, جیسے ہی وہ دبئی کے امیگریشن کاؤنٹر سے گزریں گے ان کی مجال ہے کہ وہ سگنل توڑے گی. کیوں؟ کیونکہ ان کو پتا ہے شرطے پکڑیں گے 1000 درہم کی فائن لگے گی. It is not about severity of punishment. Severity of punishment ایک الگ ڈیبیٹ ہے. It is about certainty of punishment, اور یہاں پر certainty of punishment نہیں ہے. اگر اندازن, اور یہ سب اندازن ہے, 10% کیسز رپورٹ ہوتے ہیں, مطلب کہ ان کا پرچہ کٹتا ہے, ان میں سے 10% کورٹ تک جاتے ہیں, اور جو 10% کے 10% کورٹ تک جاتے ہیں ان میں سے 4% کنوکشن ہوتی ہے. تو کیوں نہ کریں ریپ پھر مرد اس ملک میں, یا جو بھی کرنا چاہے. It's easy, you can get away with it, yaar. And if you can get away with something, you will do it.
I will speak about myself and my industry. بہت ساری ایسی چیزیں ہیں, بہت سارے ایسے ڈرامے ہیں, بہت ساری ایسی نیریٹیوز ہیں جو ہم نے انڈورس کیے ہیں, جس میں ہم نے دکھایا ہے کہ ہاں آدمی ہمیشہ اگریسر ہی ہوتا ہے, عورت سبمسو ہوتی ہے, and it's okay to be an aggressor and an aggressive man, and that's just part of being a man, and that's how you normalize it. That's how you normalize it. ہمیں لگتا ہے کہ یہ کوئی اتنی بڑی بات نہیں ہے, یہ بڑی بات ہے. میں یہ نہیں کہہ رہی کہ ہمیں اگریسو مرد ہوتے ہیں, اگریسو عورتیں بھی ہوتی ہیں. میں یہ نہیں کہہ رہی کہ ہمیں یہ دکھانا نہیں چاہیے, مگر میں سالوں سے یہ کہہ رہی ہوں کہ ہمیں اس کو ہیرو نہیں دکھانا چاہیے.
میں نے یہ دیکھا کہ بچوں کو سیکشلی ابیوز ہونے دینا چاہتے ہیں ہم, بٹ گڈ ٹچ بیڈ ٹچ کے بارے میں بات نہیں کرنا چاہتے. ہم یہ نہیں بتا سکتے اپنی کتاب کے اندر کہ اگر ڈاکٹر کے پاس بھی تم جاؤ تو تمہارے ماں باپ کو تمہارے ساتھ ہونا چاہیے اگر وہ تمہارے پرائیویٹ باڈی پارٹس کو ٹچ کرتا ہے. یہ باتیں بتانے میں ہمیں اتنے سال لگے, اور پھر جب ہم نے کتابوں میں ڈالنا شروع کیا اس چیز کو, پھر 200 گورنمنٹ اسکول تک گیا, اور پھر اس کے بعد یہ سندھ کا کریکلم بن گیا.
So as they say in the media, welcome back. 50واں ایپیسوڈ, اور ہماری بدقسمتی ہی ہے کہ ہم وہ سارا کچھ جو ہے وہ مونٹاج میں بھی نہیں دکھا سکے. ہمارا جی تو چاہتا ہے کہ ہر بات, ہر شخص, ہر موضوع کو مکمل کور کرتے, لیکن یہ صرف ان ساتھیوں کے لیے بالخصوص کہ جنہوں نے کچھ سیشن جو ہیں وہ مس کیے ہیں. اینڈ تھینکس ٹو دی انٹرنیٹ, یہ سارے سیشن جو ہیں یہ غالباً ہمیشہ کے لیے یوٹیوب پہ, فیس بک پہ ہیں. تو جب ہمارا بھی جی چاہے گا ہم بھی دیکھیں گے, لیکن آپ میں سے کچھ ساتھی جنہوں نے کوئی سیشن مس کیا ہے ان کو سرچ کریں, کیونکہ سچ اور حق اور تعلیم اور علم کی جو تلاش ہے اسی سے علم ملتا ہے. ان کو سرچ کریں, اور جو بھی موضوع آپ کو لگے کہ آپ کا جی چاہتا ہے اس کے بارے میں سننے, سمجھنے, سیکھنے کے لیے, so look it up and listen to it. And of course, one thing that we can learn is how to listen. Everyone wants to talk, but listening is an important thing as well. No project and no success is possible without a team, and no team is possible without a leader. اگر لیڈر کے پاس ٹیم نہ ہو تو لیڈر بے بس ہے, اگر ٹیم کے پاس لیڈر نہ ہو تو ٹیم بے بس ہے. سو یہ دونوں لازم و ملزوم ہیں. And of course, one key person that springs to mind immediately is the person who took the lead and who gave the permission, so to speak, who gave the vision for this LUMS Live, is the Vice Chancellor of LUMS, Dr. Arshad Ahmad, and he's with us today. Dr. Arshad, welcome, and thank you for giving all of us the opportunity. It was a big team. Of course, some people take the glory, but the hard work and the success belongs to everybody. So welcome back, and thank you so much for allowing us to do that without, in addition to the criticism and so much that people had to say کہ یہ کریں, وہ کریں, یہ غلط ہے, وہ غلط ہے, یہ نہیں کیا. all of that, but we continued the path, we continued the journey. So thank you for the vision, and thank you for, for answering all the tough questions throughout these weeks and months.
Assalamu alaikum, Adeel. Thank you so much. That's a very gracious and generous introduction as usual. And I'm just so happy that we've come full circle after this is the 50th session, half a century. Fantastic. And yes, you're absolutely right. This platform, this LUMS Live platform belongs actually to the audience. They should be thanked first and foremost, all of them, alumni, we've had a lot of them participate in this, panelists, external guests, faculty members, students, especially students, for the interesting conversations around so many amazing topics that have been curated. So I will take a moment later to thank the people behind the scenes. There are lots of people behind the scenes, but you know what? I think let's turn the tables a little bit, and it's time for me to ask you some questions. How about that? Are you ready for some questions?
I'm never ready for some questions. I'm the moderator.
Well, look, since you gave me credit that I had the vision and all this other gracious stuff you said, it's now my turn to be Adeel. I can never be Adeel, of course. No one can fill your shoes. But, in a secret way, I've always wanted to try and say, ye kaisa hoga agar main inse sawal puchun? So I have thought of a few questions, harmless ones. I'm sure you'll do really well, but you're on the hot seat, my friend. So let me begin now by asking you what I actually asked Babar Saab a few weeks ago. And it's a simple question. And I asked him that, imagine if he was a student today. I'm going to ask you the same. Imagine you're a student. Put yourself in the shoes of a student, and you're going to be admitted to LUMS, all right? But you have a choice. You can take any subject you want, any program you wish. Which subjects would you want to learn, and why would you choose those?
Oh, God. Here's a little secret, okay? Don't hold it against me. Many, many, many years ago, I was a little boy. Well, I was a little boy some months ago. I applied to LUMS. This is in the early ages of LUMS, late 80s, early 90s, I think, and I didn't get admitted. And I've felt bad throughout my life. And I've sometimes taught there, which is, I feel honored, but I wish I could study there. I wish I could go through that experience of being a student at LUMS, enjoying the campus, with friends. I would choose all of them. I would choose all of them. I would choose humanities. I would choose education. I would choose law. I would choose the business program. I would choose all of them. Now I would choose all of them. I love learning. I love what they offer at LUMS. It's a very tough question.
So I want you to now think back. You can go back to nursery school if you want. Okay, it can be any stage of your education. Can you name or think of that teacher that influenced you, that changed your path, that made a difference in your life? Do you have such a teacher in your history? Positive or negative? It can be plus or minus.
I remember two of them, okay? The first one, when I came to the senior school, which was class 6th onwards, and no, class 9th onwards. So we took chemistry. And chemistry, physics, biology, they were hard subjects. It was a public school. They weren't taught well. But my chemistry teacher, his name was Zia Saab. What a brilliant teacher he was, okay? And here's one example. I'm a self-proclaimed artist. I have a degree in arts. I have got nothing to do with science, okay? I know the formula of sulfuric acid even today because he taught me in class 9. My daughter is in class 10th today. When I was in class 9, I remember sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Hydrochloric acid is HCl. Acetic acid is CH3COOH. So that's how he taught. And even today, I remember, me and my brother went to the same school, had the same teacher. And we sometimes joke in chemical formulas. So I tell him, can you pass on the salt? And he says, sodium chloride, NaCl. So we would joke about Zia Saab. So that's the kind of impact a good teacher can have. So that's one. But I have another example. You mentioned nursery. I was in nursery. I was 3 years old. 3. And we had a headmistress, unko madam kehte the, because the teacher was miss and the headmistress was madam. And once a month she would just in her juda and in a sari, she would just walk into a class and just kind of look around and say hello, and then she would leave. So this one day we was reading so our teacher had written A, B, C on the board. And we were sitting in a circle, all little 3-4 year old, 15 people. And that was the day when madam came into the class, and she looked at the board and she saw ABC written. So she told the teacher, give me 2 minutes. So she stood and she started saying, and this is what she did. This is what she did. I was in nursery. She said, A. So we all went, A. Then she said, B. And we all mellowed down and we said, B. And then she said, C. And we all slowed down a bit further and we all said, C. And then she went away. I have never forgotten that one lesson in tone, in communication, in control. I was in nursery. So this is what great teachers do. You remember them and you remember what they said. Something in 2 minutes, she changed my life completely. So I'm so happy that you brought this up, and I'm remembering Mrs. Jaffrey was her name. Wow, this is an emotional moment for me. So thank you for bringing it up.
Fantastic, Adeel. I'm so glad they were at the tip of your fingertips. You just, I'm sure you could go on if we continued this conversation. In fact, one of मेरी एक ख्वाहिश ये है कि हम एक thank your teachers day रखें as a national offering, to give back to those who changed us, and so we honor them. And या तो आप उनको खत लिखें, या तो उनको कॉल करें, या तो फिर बस याद करें. कोई बात नहीं. I mean, they deserve our thanks, don't they? And if we had a national thank you day for teachers, I'm sure everybody would sign up. Every single teacher at LUMS, I have asked them this question, and they all respond like you do. There's always a Mr. Zadi or Mrs. Jaffrey or chemistry ho to ye ho. Or, a lot of the things they say, as you have been, is that they form these impressions. The way they do it is with so much care and so much understanding that you're forever grateful. So thanks for your share there. Really appreciate that. Acha, ek sawal ye hai, yaar. I think this is one that everyone wants to know, I'm guessing, which is, you've seen a lot of people here on this, on the LUMS live sessions. Some of them have been, bigger than life. Do you have any that sort of are really memorable for you, since we're talking about memories? A session maybe that stood out, maybe a shocking comment you heard, or a moment, that sticks out for you. What do you say?
There've been several. And I remember telling somebody just yesterday, whenever somebody asks me now, what are you doing these days? I take pride, if not, honor in saying, I do a session online called LUMS Live. And what I feel inside is something which is just, it's difficult to explain. So two moments did stand out, but there were several others. And I think funnily, it was the same session where I met these two people. I've met them before. One is perhaps the oldest person who's appeared on LUMS Live, and one is perhaps the youngest person who's appeared on LUMS Live. They were both together. One was, of course, Sayyid Babar Ali. And this was his comment. And I was expecting a long, lengthy conversation. And I asked him, Babar Saab, you've seen so much. If you could change one thing about this country, what would that be? And I was expecting a long answer by this old sage. And he said one sentence. He said, I want this country to be at peace with itself. If you had a magic lamp, what would you fix? What would you change in this country today?
I wish this country to be at peace with itself.
Wow. And of course, being in conversation with Malala was just most memorable, Her, she's so inspiring and she's so genuine, and she's just so herself. And and you see this person who's a Nobel laureate, an Oxford graduate, and an international star, but she's also a little girl, just a little girl. And I thought that was so heartwarming, so heartwarming. And of course, we've had scholars and we've had educationists and commentators. They were all brilliant. But I think these two moments would stand out for me forever.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I mean, great choices, Adeel. They really capture the, the spirit of Pakistan, which is generosity, and that's Babar Sahib. I mean, who can deny that? And then on the other hand, we are the youngest nation on earth. So you chose, of course, our youngest, in fact, the world's youngest Nobel laureate and our own Malala. So thank you for that. That's excellent. I also noticed that in many of the sessions, and sometimes I'm secretly watching, you don't know that, but I'm one of the participants because I enjoy these so much, and it's a tribute to you, really. You've asked them this kind of question about what they would wish for, with the genie, if there was a genie. And so I guess we'll ask you that question. If that genie came out of that bottle, what are you wishing for? What are your wishes?
I think I would like the quality of art in this world, performing arts, and all sorts of art to go up tremendously. I think art is a place where we take inspiration from, and I think what we lack is true inspiration. And I think art, not saying science is not and other subjects are not saying that, but I think art is where, at least that's where I learned, the grind. Stay at something and keep doing it, keep practicing. The honor and nobility of repetitiveness. Just keep at it. There's no rush. You can't rush to a point. You can't rush to make a painting. You can't rush and write a piece of poetry. You can't rush to memorize a piece of poetry, let alone write it. So I think I would want great artists in this country who inspire a generation of working hard and working in solitude and not putting all of that thing on Facebook, just throwing down their heads and just keep working. Greatest of minds work in silence. So I want people to understand that silence and working in silence is a great thing. That would be one. I would certainly wish people were more articulate. I would certainly wish that. I would wish people were more or less emotional and more informed. And I think these two things go hand in hand. The more informed you are, the less emotional you get. And I think we've kind of, it's tilted. People are more emotional collectively perhaps and less informed. I would want people to just slow down a bit. Just slow down a bit, breathe a bit, slow down a bit. And of course, all those basic things about education and justice and love, of course, they go without saying. And I wish the old values came back. There's a line in Babar Sahib's autobiography, which I read and I'm shaken to the core, where he talks so fondly about his father. And then he mentioned something to the effect of that, in a strange way, I'm happy that he's dead, because if he were alive in today's Pakistan, he would see the whole value system has collapsed, and that would hurt him so much. And that hurt me coming from him. So I'd want the value system to come back. लोगों के मिजाज, लोगों का लहजा जो है, उसमें अगर नरमी और धीमापन आ जाए, उससे ज्यादा खूबसूरत चीज क्या हो सकती है? So yeah, I think my wishes are over. Or I could go on.
Wow, that is inspiring. You've said a lot in just a few sentences. Whether it's mastery learning, which is through practice and repetition. By the way, Adeel, there's some great research on this, on expertise, and it's all about what you're saying. It's all about practice. In fact, there is a 10,000 hours of deliberate practice that is associated with expertise, and you're so right about that. Okay? We have to be patient when we go through building our skill and our craft. And yet you end with the most important part of what LUMS is about, which is about values and about integrity and about thinking about the truth and speaking your mind and all of the wonderful things that come with strong personality and sticking with your beliefs. So thank you so much for that. That resonates so nicely. देखिए एक और सवाल है अगर आप मुझे इजाजत दें और मैं मेरी उर्दू तो बहुत कमजोर है और मैं सब लोगों से माजरत मांगता हूँ लेकिन आप जब उर्दू बोलते हैं तो मेरे ख्याल में लोगों की आंखें खुल जाती हैं और आप जब शेरो शायरी करते हैं फिर तो वाह वाह बात ही अलग आई मीन जबान का लुत्फ आ जाता है और दिल खुल जाता है तो मेरी दरख्वास्त आपसे ये है कि हमें कुछ सुनाएं आपके जहन में जो भी आए आप अपनी बेहतरीन खूबसूरत उर्दू में अर्ज करें
एक शेर मुझे बहुत पसंद है लेकिन मैं दो सुनाऊंगा क्योंकि आपने मुझसे कहा है तो मैं दो सुनाऊंगा और वो इसलिए कि आजकल लोगों को बहुत जल्दी है कि कोविड खत्म हो और सब कुछ जो है वो दोबारा वैसे ही खड़ा हो जाए जैसे कि पहले था लेकिन कुछ काम ऐसे होते हैं जो फौरन नहीं हो सकते जरा सब्र उसमें चाहिए होता है लेकिन मुझे मालूम है कि लम्स के ऊपर भी और दूसरे दौर में बहुत प्रेशर है कि बस खोल दें सब दरवाजे खोल लें और सबको अंदर शुरू करें क्योंकि हम जो है वो बहुत पीछे रह गए जैसे हम 73 बरस पीछे नहीं थे बस अभी पीछे रह गए सो यू नो पीपल एंड स्टूडेंट्स आर काइंड ऑफ इम्पेशेंट ओके सो ये एक बड़ी खूबसूरत दो शेर हैं सिर्फ एक मेरी हीरो पोएट हैं जावेद अख्तर उनकी है दूसरा शेर लम्स के लिए पहला शेर बस मुझे बहुत पसंद है अब वो ये है कि जरा मौसम तो बदला है लेकिन पेड़ों की शाखों पे नए पत्तों के आने में अभी कुछ दिन लगेंगे बहुत से जर्द चेहरों पर गुबार गम है कम बेशक लेकिन इनको मुस्कुराने में अभी कुछ दिन लगेंगे पुरानी मंजिलों का शौक तो किसको है अब नहीं है मंजिलें बाकी हैं सबके दिल में जिनके अरमा बना लेना नई मंजिल न था मुश्किल मगर ए दिल नए रास्ते बनाने में अभी कुछ दिन लगेंगे
बहुत खूब शुक्रिया बहुत शुक्रिया आपका फैंटास्टिक so Adeel why don't we wrap this up by just remembering that you know this little discussion that we've had in the last 15 minutes or so, the truth of it is that this is a tribute to you. This is a time and place where we give thanks, and without the master of ceremonies, nothing happens. I think people don't understand how much preparation and how much time that goes into thinking about questions that you make so seamless and effortless, require a lot of practice, a lot of thought, and that's the skill that you offer us, and you bring the best out in people. And I'm ever so grateful for everything that you have done for the past 49 sessions, and inshallah, many, many more to come.
Honored.
So,
I'm honored.
Thank you. Main aapki ijazat do. I'd like to thank some other people behind the scenes. You know, while people are watching, they think it's a one-man show, maybe someone else in the background. There's actually over a dozen people who make these shows happen. So let me acknowledge them and thank them as well. Let me begin with the Director of Advancement, Nusrat Kamran. She spearheads the entire show, takes responsibility for it, and so she gets a big round of applause. And hand in hand with her is Marwa Mokham. She is the assistant manager. She is relentless in engaging us with all the wonderful topics and all the panelists. And sometimes she's taken your place, by the way. And so she's up and coming. So keep a good eye on her and nurture her and give her all of your skills so that we also...
Do I look for another job?
Hey, you know, you've talked about this, about leadership. Good leaders always mentor those who are better than them. So at the end of the day, your job will be done when she does a better job than you.
Marwa, pull up your socks, okay? I'm coming for you.
There's, of course, Isha Mahmood. She's the assistant manager of marketing. Aisha Fatima is the manager. They do all this 11th hour support with everything that endures in this particular segment. And then, of course, the heavy lifters. The heavy lifters are the two Alis, the Ali Naqvi, who is our senior videographer, and Muhammad Ali, who's the deputy brand manager. They are leading the technical production. They do all the behind the scenes technical operations. They make this broadcast really look so seamless, although a lot of this is being done with only their expertise. Then there is Khuzaima Azam. She's the deputy manager in the communications team. There's also Aisha Shirazi, who's the senior editor. There's Samin Mohsen, who is the senior officer. All of them are thinking about content, anything related to communications and the copy, the promotions, all of the stuff that goes on to bring our audiences to this show. Well, we thank them for that. And last but not least, there's Abdul Majid, who is part of the digital scene. There's Awais Tariq, who is another officer in marketing. There's our Irfan Latif, who all our alumni know. And they are doing the digital marketing for this and, do the 360 social media coverage of all of the sessions, which is really why LUMS Live has become the voice of LUMS, an extension for reach, for access, and for connecting with broad audiences who otherwise would not have a chance to interact with the people that you bring to the panel and have these wonderful conversations with. So the biggest thanks, of course, go to our audience. So I thank the audience again, and I hope you'll keep coming back. And for all of you, and thank you again, Adeel. Inshallah, I look forward to seeing you on another panel.
Pleasure. So this was the 50th episode of LUMS Live. आप में से बहुत सारे ऐसे दोस्त और साथी हैं जिन्होंने हमें मुस्तकिल या तनकीद की, तारीफ की कुछ आइडियाज दिए, बट कीप ऑन कमिंग. अगर आपके पास कुछ ऐसे आइडियाज हैं टॉपिक्स के लिए, फॉर इंस्टेंस, या लोग ऐसे आपकी नजर में हैं, कुछ एक्सपर्ट्स जो अभी तक हमने नहीं बुलाए LUMS लाइव पर और आप चाहते हैं कि उनकी गुफ्तगू सुनी जाए, प्लीज सजेस्ट टू अस. कमेंट बॉक्स में आप हमें भेज सकते हैं अपनी आइडियाज, या हमारा ईमेल एड्रेस नोट कर लें और उस पर हमें सजेस्ट करें, ask@lums.edu.pk. One more time, ask@lums.edu.pk. आपकी फीडबैक, आपकी तनकीद, आपकी तारीफ हमारे लिए बहुत अहम है. अपना ख्याल रखें, अपने आसपास सबका ख्याल रखें. पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद.